Happening now, a whole new show on Fox with John Scott and Jane Skinner starts right now.
Taking you to the news across the country and around the world. If it's happening now, it's happening on Fox. Harris Faulkner is at our breaking news desk. Jenna Lee from the Fox Business Newsroom and Courtney Friel on the .com watch. Right now, we have the hot list of stories to bring you.
Including that writers' strike. The pens are actually down today. The picket signs are up. Film and TV writers are on strike at this hour. And if you looked at some of the morning TV shows today, you could see them and you could hear them as well.
The mystery in Galveston, where they're trying to identify the remains of the girl they're calling Baby Grace. She washed up on shore, was found by a fisherman inside a plastic box. A lot of questions here. Not many answers so far.
And there are at least three just today critical issues happening that are going to impact this country greatly. We're going to ask Senator John McCain what he would do about them if elected president. He is our guest today in just a couple of minutes. Top of the list, of course, the critical situation in Pakistan.
It has been called the most dangerous place on earth, and it's vitally important to us in the war on terror. Today, more chaos in the streets of Pakistan. You can see police charging protesters under a cloud of tear gas. A state of emergency now in effect there. More than 1,500 people have been arrested so far as President Pervez Musharraf cracks down on what he calls extremists within his country. Strong reaction from the White House now, where the Bush administration is expressing deep concern and trying to figure out a response. White House correspondent Wendell Goler is live on the North Lawn. Wendell, the president cannot be happy about what's going on in Pakistan.
Not at all, John. The president briefed on the situation this morning. Aides say he was deeply disturbed. He called on Pakistani President Musharraf to end the state of emergency he's declared and to free the hundreds of lawyers and opposition party leaders who've been arrested in the past couple of days. He also called on Musharraf to hold national elections in January as scheduled and to end his control of the military as he's promised. The U.S. spent weeks helping exiled opposition leader Benazir Bhutto broker a return to Pakistan to share power with Musharraf. The latest actions suggest Musharraf was concerned that Ms. Bhutto would have more popular support than he does. U.S. officials reviewing aid to Pakistan, but almost all of it is tied to the war on terror, and officials make clear, John, that is unlikely to be cut.
So what's the timetable here, Wendell? Do you get any impression that the White House figures they have hours, days, weeks to respond to this?
Well, they can't push too hard. Officials say they are reviewing the aid. There is some aid that is tied to education, also public health matters that they might trim in order to gently nudge Musharraf's hand, but they don't want to do anything that would weaken his control of the country. He's such an essential ally in the war on terror, John.
All right, Wendell Goler, stick with us for just a moment. Wendell live at the White House.
Yeah, John, we have Scott Heidler. He is on the ground in Islamabad on the phone with us now. Scott, what is the situation at this minute?
Good morning to you, Jane. Well, it's a very tense night here in Islamabad. I'm standing right next to Constitution Avenue. That's the main avenue next to all the government buildings here. Now, that has been blocked by barbed wire since Saturday night when this state of emergency was imposed by President Pervez Musharraf. Now, what we've been seeing today, protests across the country, not too many here in Islamabad, but specifically in the eastern city of Lahore. Thousands of attorneys and judges turned out onto the streets to vocalize their disappointment with the move by President Pervez Musharraf. We do know that at least 3,500 people from across the country have been detained, put behind bars. That ranges from, yes, these protesters, but also some opposition leaders and other activists. They are all now behind bars. As far as security goes, we do know that there is a little bit of troop movement here around Islamabad. Nothing major, nothing drastic, but we do hear that some forces are moving about. This would be a change because until a point when the military, the army, the proper Pakistani army makes their way onto the streets, in the past it's just been paramilitary and police. So if there is that transition, that could indicate that there might be something else going on with the leadership of this country. Jen?
Scott, a quick question for you. I know over the weekend they had cut off all media except for the state-run media. How are you getting your information, and how do you know it's accurate?
Quite frankly, the telephone. Talking to a lot of people, talking to a lot of Pakistani journalists who are still working. Print is still operating, print outlets, newspapers, magazines. They're out there talking to sources, that kind of thing. But as far as getting anything from the television, nope, it's just state-run Pakistan TV. They, they cut it off, maybe cut off all the other channels maybe midday on Saturday. Pakistan TV, PTV, only game in town. They aired the announcement, the official announcement of the state of emergency, and then later that night, President Pervez Musharraf's speech to the nation announcing the state of emergency. Jane?
Scott Heidler on the ground there in Islamabad for us. Scott, thank you. We'll get back to you as events warrant.
Let's go back to the White House, where Wendell Goler is keeping an eye on the administration's reaction to what's going on in Pakistan. Wendell, I know that Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice made it very clear to Pervez Musharraf that they didn't want to see this state of emergency imposed. He did it anyway. I mean, diplomatically, that's a pretty big slap in the face to the U.S., right?
Well, Rice, as you say, met with Musharraf last week and urged him not to declare the state of emergency. He did not listen to her. One Pakistani official says, quite frankly, they felt the U.S. would rather have a Pakistan with some restrictions than to have a more democratic Pakistan likely to fall into the hands of extremists. But as we've noted, the people being arrested are not the people necessarily responsible for the terrorist attacks that have claimed some 800 Pakistani lives this year. It's lawyers and opposition party leaders who are being taken in, John.
Let's talk what else about what else is happening now at the White House. The president certainly has his hands full meeting with Turkish President Erdogan about the incursions that Turkey wants to make into northern Iraq. The president trying to prevent him from doing that, or at least talk him into doing that, huh?
Well, it's yet another hot spot on the president's mind today. He's meeting with Prime Minister Erdogan to talk about northern Iraq, where members of the Kurdish Worker Party have crossed into Turkey and killed dozens of people this year. Turkey's parliament has given the go-ahead for Turkey's army to cross the border in retaliation. The U.S. worries that would destabilize the most stable part of Iraq. You may have heard some protesters behind me just a couple of minutes ago. There are a couple hundred of them, Iraqis out here, protesting the possibility of Turkish troops going into northern Iraq. The U.S. has been giving Turkey intelligence so it can bomb extremist bases, and the president, in his meeting with Prime Minister Erdogan today, will urge him not to take the step of actually sending troops across the border to go after the PKK, John.
Wendell Goler at the White House. Wendell, thanks.
Well, Oprah Winfrey today making